You put Cassie on the stand and you led her, not let her. You led her, LED. You led her to testify about something that was demonstrably false.
Wow.
The case is over for me. It's over for me. Because I can't trust anything or anyone that you put on the stand now. Because you are not preparing witnesses to tell their truth. You are coaching witnesses to tell your truth.
Wow.
You are coaching witnesses to tell any story that you need to make sure that you can get a conviction. Now, here's the thing. Jurors need to understand that if you're confused, you're not convinced.
Right.
It's not your job to go unconfuse yourself. It's not your job to make this case make sense for you. If the prosecution does not do that, and you are not convinced, and you are confused, you must acquit him. You must vote not guilty. The law requires it. It's not even a question.
These two attorneys are letting you know the feds were out of their depth going after Diddy. Shout out to Dennis Byron and the Hip Hop Inquirer channel. Shout out to him for putting together an epic, legendary live stream. You can see what a brilliant legal mind looks like that isn't in the bag for one side or the other. She's just being clear. She's just being forthright and saying what it is. So this is her talking about some of the coverage of this case, including some of the YouTubers that might have some serious ulterior motives in why they were reporting the way that they are and how they have been wrong so many times. They've pushed the common narrative so much so that they ended up on mainstream outlets repeating and regurgitating this misinterpretation of the law. So many of your favorite YouTubers that are covering this case have serious glaring issues in comprehension and their interpretation of what was happening in this case.
What's going on? I'm glad somebody else out here, because girl, I done pulled up the jury instructions trying to tell folk what you gotta prove. I'm like, it's been rough out here.
Right. Because
there's been other lawyers that I'm like, well, what area do you practice?
She's even talking about the lawyers.
It's been rough out here.
It's bad. It is bad. A lot of the commentary is wrong, right? It's inaccurate, unfortunately. We try to correct the record as much as we can. And hopefully, jurors are respecting the court's instructions and admonitions, and they're not, looking at social media and these videos and these pseudo journalists who are misreporting facts, details, the law.
Now, we talk about the jurors. The jurors are walking out into into the public every day. They cross the cameras all the time. Do you think this jury should have been sequestered? And that's for any one of the panelists.
Nope.
No. First of all, sequestering a jury is an extreme measure. And when I say extreme measure, it's costly, not just financially, but time-wise. You're taking these people away from their families regularly, and it's not necessary. I don't think it's necessary. So yeah, I don't. You're just gonna have a bunch of disgruntled jurors. Nobody wants unhappy jurors, right? Because unhappy jurors convict. Like we don't want them. Yeah, we're gonna keep them happy. So yeah, I don't think they should have been sequestered. Yeah, along those lines, right? Because
this is attorney Ike Al-Shabazz. Ike Speaks on YouTube. When you hear what she says, go follow her. She's spitting on this video.
And the prosecution is offering this type of evidence. They're asking the jury to trust that this evidence means what we say it means. Do you think that relationship they're trying to establish with the jury has been undermined as a result of this testimony from, was it Banya?
Yes.
The balcony testimony.
The lady was Cassie's friend who testified to the possibility of being dangled over the balcony. This is who she's zeroing in on, because this might be one of the ways that Diddy beats this case, because they did allow her testimony even after she was found to have perjured herself, allegedly. But they're actually covering the letter in support of its renewed motion for a mistrial based on prosecutorial misconduct. This came out on June 7th, and they're going to read, I think, this and also maybe some jury instructions, I believe.
Do you think this is a good motion for the defense?
So I think it's a necessary motion. I think it's a good motion. I wish that it had been worded a little more strongly. I know that oftentimes lawyers, they don't want to offend the prosecution, so they don't go hard on these motions. But they should have slayed them in this motion. They should have asked for sanctions. They should have asked for a referral to the committee, to the ethics committee. They should have done all of that. When you suborn perjury, and that is what you are saying. If you really, really, really are saying they suborn perjury, go all in.
Right.
Go all in. You talking about they collaborated their testimony. They homogenized their testimony. They picked the wrong word. It's not collaboration. It's homogenized. This is, you sit down and you make sure that these things meld together. They work together. That's what they did.
Yeah.
That's what they did. That's what allegedly, right? What Bonner and Cassie did. They sat down and they said, okay, this is how this is going to roll. I'm going to say this and you're going to say that. And they're going to put that together. And that's going to sound hella true.
It does seem like certain elements of people that knew each other in this, allegedly, they couldn't get their stories quite together, if you've been following the trial. What Cassie testified to and Breonna testified to sometimes conflicted. And they caught Breonna in a lie on the stand. I think it's been proven now. But this sounds like grounds for maybe a mistrial. I don't know.
The government knew the whole time because, just so people remember how this works, everybody in the courtroom, both sides, they have the same evidence, right? So the the text messages that they had between Cassie, right? And I think it was KK saying, I just heard some shit. You just heard some shit and you didn't see it. Right? So which one is going to be? So the government had that. You had that. And despite that fact, you still put this woman on the stand, not KK. I'm talking not Bonner. I'm talking about Cassie. You put Cassie on the stand and you led her, not let her. You led her. L-E-D. You led her to testify about something that was demonstrably false.
Wow.
The case is over for me. It's over for me. Because I can't trust anything or anyone that you put on the stand now. Because you are not preparing witnesses to tell their truth. You are coaching witnesses to tell your truth.
Wow.
You are coaching witnesses to tell any story that you need to make sure that you can get a conviction. That's it.
Dang, she really cooking right there, man. I wish she was in a bigger screen right here. Yeah, you can barely see her, but she's down there in the bottom left.
That's all you want. And as a prosecutor, there is a lot. I'm gonna tell you, there is a lot of pressure, not just from the public, but from the people in your office who are watching this trial. Right? There's a lot of prosecutors' offices. They have different little things that you do when you're in a trial. Right? We had a bell. Right? When you come in from the office, you got a guilty. You come in, you ring the bell. Everybody comes out. It's like, it's a fucking production.
Right.
They want to ring the fucking bell. They want to ring the bell. They want to ring the bell, and it looks like, and I say this is my opinion because they like to sue people. It looks like they are willing to do anything to secure conviction in this case.
How do we know that's true? Just by way of this piece of evidence, and as I listened to the testimony, I said these guys have unlimited resources. They had the ability to check the photo, the metadata, Why did Miss Nicole Westmoreland under cross-examination have to bring this out? They knew this was going to be a problem for them.
No. This is what they gamble on. They gamble on defense attorneys who don't read discovery. They gamble on defense attorneys who don't know how to do effective cross-examination. They gamble on that, and they hope you don't find the discovery that they buried in between thousands and thousands of pages and boxes of that they sent you.
Wow.
Right? So that's what they gamble on. They hope that you are not as adept at your job as they are at theirs. Right? And if you don't catch it, what if she didn't catch it? Then the jury is none the wiser that these witnesses got on this stand and they lied with the imprimatur, with the stamp of approval of the government.
Now, where are you hearing that? Anywhere in the coverage, nobody brings up the fact that she lied. You need so I said you need somebody like Attorney Ike. She's breaking it down on how the letter should have been rewritten and how it should have been more aggressive about the fact that we got proven lies in the testimony between Cassie and Brianna. I think is that her name? Miss Bungalow, whatever. Allegedly, right? We've got, I have to say allegedly, but we've got conflicting testimonies. They've got different dates listed. Like Cassie has, I don't think people realize, but Cassie said that she witnessed Diddy dangling her friend over a balcony. So all this RICO activity, all this, let's say Diddy is John Gotti. She's saying something that she witnessed when her friend testifies to the fact, and the text messages actually back up the fact that she was not present. She found out about this incident over the text message. That is the problem we're having here. And at that point, you should be able to throw away all of that testimony. Somebody's lying here. Somebody's lying.
How can you give a jury a curative instruction when this is so damning to? Yeah. This goes into the character of Combs. They portray this guy as I say the Tobias of the Black Lightning. This guy just doing all kind of listen. This guy first and foremost, he's done a lot of.
I don't know. To your point, right? So under the federal rules of evidence, under Federal Rule 105. The government, any party, the defense could ask for what's called a limiting instruction, right? Which is where they're asking the court to tell the jury something about this particular evidence, how they should view it, how they should consider it. What is the court going to say? Ladies and gentlemen, you heard testimony from a particular witness, Ms. Banya, and then you later heard testimony during cross-examination that the testimony that she gave was not true. You should consider, it's up to you to consider. I mean, because he can't tell them what to do with it. It's up to you to consider how much of her testimony that you will believe and how much of it you won't believe. That's the typical false in one, false in all jury instruction, right? That the court will give at the end of this trial. And that's a real thing, right? Because you can parse.
And isn't that how it should be? False in one, false in all, right? If you're willing to stretch the truth about something, we can't trust anything you said.
Doubt some truth in some people's story. And if you believe the truths of the parts of the story, you can believe those parts. And the parts that you don't believe to be true, you can disregard those parts. That's what the judge is going to tell them. So I don't think that there is.
That's impossible too, by the way. You can't just turn a juror's mind off to what they've already experienced and what they've already seen.
Instruction that he could fashion that would be fair, honestly.
It wouldn't be fair. And therefore, what? All these mistrials that he's denied, he probably should have granted one.
Mel, what did you think about how Nicole did her cross-examination?
I think they're about to talk about Westmoreland right here.
They being prosecution was trying to have Nicole re-ask the question, and Nicole was like, y'all trying to mess me up. You're trying to get her now backtrack on her saying it happened on the 26th. She's already said it. She's already said it happened on the 26th. I'm not going to restate. And the judge was, she asked the question, foundation has been laid. She can proceed. And so she gets back up there and does it. I think the other interesting thing is that for me, this is my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. We all know that. But for me, what was really interesting about her setup is that the first set of questions that Nicole asked, or at least early in that cross-examination of Bana, she had her go through all of the drugs that woman took, all of them. And immediately, right, early on, what you gather is that she's an addict, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're like, okay, foundation is laid. And so now I'm personally viewing her as an addict. And so when you hear us.
So why are we listening to her testimony as this serious witness?
And we saw how she was, Melody. We saw how she was crying all through the morning. It was Jane tears Doe. All over the place.
Jane Doe, right?
Yeah.
Jane Doe.
Yeah.
Jane Doe.
The Jane Doe that everybody know.
I don't understand how they can maintain her anonymity on cross-examination. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say this because part of her testimony, no, come on, I know better.
I know. Okay,
part of her testimony surrounds this idea that she was involved in all of this because he had threatened to take away this $10,000 payment that he's making for paying her rent or whatever, right? But your child's father is also a millionaire. Mm-hmm. And you're we're not naming names, but if I'm on cross, I want to know how much child support you was getting.
Exactly.
How much child support was you getting? Because you're making it seem like that 10,000, that 10 stacks was the only money you saw, and you couldn't move.
Yep.
Because without it, you couldn't move. Oh, he would threaten to stop paying my rent. Okay, you know what that says to me? That you are replaceable. Right?
Whoa, I gotta drop a bomb on that. You are replaceable. What did we say? These girlfriends were plug and play for the FOs, the freak-offs. That is a very important point that I think gets missed very often. Were they really even girlfriends? Or was their function just this? Even though they wanted it to be something different. It's like high school, you know what I mean? Like you're deluding yourself into believing this relationship is something more than it is, but in fact, it's just simply not, And no matter how much crying you do on the stand, it really doesn't change that fact. Telling you, Attorney Ike Al-Shabazz, crushing.
That's a standard relationship with a boyfriend and girlfriend. You're not giving me what I need. I'm gonna go get it from somewhere else.
Right.
And he said you can go.
Very important point.
Racketeering.
It's not racketeering.
Here's the thing that was interesting for me. I will say she comes across as credible for me. She also brought up child support. Yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if that question is asked on examination, because she said at one point, the way I was living the financially is from the money he would give me as well as my child support. Literally, that was it.
I gotta know how much the child support was.
So yes.
And she's still living in that person in his house right now. He's paying he's paying the rent. Still paying.
Yes. However, the thing I found most interesting about her testimony was at the very end of the day when the defense, Agnifilo, I can never say that man's name. Agnifilo. Put
the emphasis
on the wrong syllable.
Right, but how many times, like you fooled me one time with that? I showed up and then we gotta have a freak off.
Right.
So the next time, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it. I'll show up again, and you still got some people. I'm out.
Done.
I thought it was interesting because
this is what I'm talking about. This attorney is speaking common sense. She is saying exactly what it is. You fool me once, shame on you. You fool me twice, you can't fool me again. You know what I mean? Like, how many times did they keep going back and forth? And what was their major motivation to keep coming back and to keep getting messed around with? Gotta censor all types of things to get the message out. But, Like, how many times did they have to burn their hand on the stove before they realize, this guy's probably not somebody I want to be around? So much so that Jane is still there, still getting $10,000 a month to this day.
What they were saying, right? The reason they're reading her notes is because she is saying, you lied to me. Which means, which the prosecutors were saying was that those lies are then material, and they're proving her state of mind, which is that she felt lied to. She felt I want to go to Turks. I want to celebrate my birthday in Turks. Okay, right. Turks. We're going to Turks. Finally, after all of this time, I'm taking you to Turks. And what happens? An entertainer shows up. Yeah. We agreed there wouldn't be one. And then hey, come to New York. I want to see you for a couple days. Okay, but I don't want any entertainers. No, just me and you time, because she expresses, I really want me and you time. Mm-hmm. Me and you time date night. She comes to New York. She looks up and the red light is on in the hotel, in Trump hotel room. And so
Ike, it's a problem, Ike. It looks like
it's not.
It's not a problem.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
It's not criminal.
Is it a crime?
Use yourself. It's not your job to make this case make sense. That's something I do on, right? So they need to make sure that each juror understands their role. You must decide this case for yourself. That doesn't mean you don't listen to your other jurors and you deliberate with your other jurors and you exchange ideas and thoughts, but do not abandon your conscientiously held belief about this case. Mm-hmm. Don't abandon it, even if you're in the minority and the hour is late. Right, so it's Friday at 4 o'clock. You gonna be a holdout? I need you. You got to promise me that. That's something I do on jury selection. I need to know. I need to make sure that you're not gonna be like, all right, and everybody else said it's gonna be what it is, and you just throw your caution to the wind, throw your vote to the wind because you are in the minority and the hour is late. Right? That's one. Two, they need to make sure this the jury understands that this man is presumed innocent unless and until they are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, here's the thing. Jurors need to understand that if you're confused, you're not convinced.
Right.
It's not your job to go unconfuse yourself. It's not your job to make this case make sense for you. If the prosecution does not do that, and you are not convinced and you are confused, you must acquit him. You must vote not guilty. The law requires it. It's not even a question. Right. And they need to make sure the jury understands that. If you're confused, you're not convinced, you must vote not guilty. That's it. In this case, it's confusing because there is no way that they're going to sell this racketeering, going to sell this RICO, going to sell that there's a conspiracy with this individual who is the only person charged. A conspiracy, by definition, is an agreement between you and some other mother.
Multiple people.
So where the other mother? Where they at? Pull up. And I don't want to hear this whole, well, Cassie is an unindicted co-conspirator. No, she's not. She clearly is identified as a victim.
Right.
As are the other 3 or 4 victims. So where are the co-conspirators? And no, it's not the people that they gave immunity to.
And if she's purely a victim, then why is she responsible for picking, selecting, and paying these people that participated in the freak-offs? I always tried to wonder that. I always tried to figure that out. Diddy had no money touching his hands in no way, shape, or form. How can you convict him for these Mann Act violations and trafficking if he had nothing to do with the actual moving of these people? I don't know where the Punisher is right now. I know I'm in LA right now. And if you want the Punisher, then you can fly the Punisher out. That's fine. But where is the responsibility? Where is the participation? I'm not getting that from what the prosecution said, and we got a RICO case here for one person, a freako.
4 victims. So where are the co-conspirators? And no, it's not the people that they gave immunity to, right? Just because you have engaged in some criminal activity does not mean that you and I agreed. Does not mean that you and I had the same mental state, because that's what's required for a conspiracy, right? We both have to agree that we are going to together commit this crime, right? It can't be that you committing the crime because you work for me.
Right.
That's not a conspiracy. You're not a conspirator. You are a low-level employee who is doing my bidding.
And that would fall under KK and D-Rock as well.
Yeah,
right.
Well, where the fuck they at? So where they at?
Where they at?
They
didn't even have to show up.
I imagine that they will be calling KK.
Right.
But I imagine that testimony is not going to go the way that they expect.
And they're definitely going to risk bringing her in. And D-Rock, his name came up on, during plenty of times.
And listen, again, if on summations, if those people are not called, one, I'm asking for a missing witness charge, right? So a missing witness charge is when you say, you ask the court, can you give an instruction to the jury and tell them that the prosecution promised that you would hear from this witness, and because you did not hear from this witness, you can now draw a negative inference that had this witness come, the testimony would have been favorable for the defense, and that's why they didn't bring the witness. So I'm asking for that instruction.
Wow, that is crazy to think of. The reason KK and D-Rock aren't called is because they're going to basically blow up the prosecution's case. They're going to say things that do not support what they're claiming. Maybe in an effort to save their own hides, but not what they're claiming. This is brilliant.
I want that instruction so that when summation comes, I'm going to say, you heard all this testimony about a KK. They didn't bring KK.
At all.
They didn't bring KK.
They showed a picture about 3 times.
Right. So if they didn't, so that's, that remains to be seen. That's the argument to be made if they don't bring these people.
Right.
Right. So we see the crosses getting better, because I remember I spoke on Hip Hop Uncensored, and I broke down the 3 C's of impeachment, right? And how it needs to be a lead up. I did this 2 weeks ago, that they have to commit, right? 3 C's meaning that you don't just go in to confront a witness. There has to be a lead up. You have to get them to commit and credit their prior testimony before you confront them with their inconsistent statement. And finally, we see them doing that. Finally, we see Brian still asking close-ended questions. That's something he didn't do in the YSL trial, was something that drove me crazy. Now I see him, he's like, isn't it true that? I'm like, oh, let me find out you done found some close questions, Brian. Let's go. So yeah, I'm happy to see that. Listen, because
if you believe somebody's lying on you, you kind of, the response is kind of like, you're going to have some reactions if you're just a human being. So I'm sure some of the jurors, I don't have to be there to know that some of the jurors are like, well, didn't they just say?
Right.
Sometimes it's just hard, but they felt like what the government said at the sidebar was Diddy was making these faces, and they saw jurors writing stuff down when he made the faces. So it was basically they were agreeing that what Westmoreland was saying was what it was by the way Diddy was responding.
Nonsense.
And they saw them write it down. I was like, huh?
Nonsense. Well, so the other side, the other part of that 611 rule is that the court can interrupt an examination if the witness is being embarrassed or humiliated or right. So the court can do that. And that's what they're relying on, but that's not what's happening. They're doing their job. That's what cross-examination looks like. They're not used to seeing it. You know why? Because they have a 99% conviction rate. You know where that conviction rate comes from? Please.
It
doesn't come from having trial. Understand that. They don't it's not the smallest percentage because it's only a small percent that goes to trial.
Right.
And what I like about this, just as an attorney, is to see a millionaire that can afford to really go up against what the feds got.
Exactly.
Like a lot of times we don't get to see it where they going toe for toe, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, and we don't.
And they're not used to that. Like I've had cases in the Southern, they're not used to that. When you push it back, they're like, "What the f is going on? What's happening? Why would you be like defending.
I don't think
like that's what I came to do. Like that's kind of my job, right? But I had a trial in front of Judge Stein in the Southern District, and I tore the government's witnesses up so bad. The judge called me up and was like, "I like how you did that cross." They're not used to seeing it.
Right.
They are not used to seeing it. In one case, Mia got pulled over speeding, name dropped that her boss was Mr. Combs and got him on the phone.
That testimony was so convenient when she said it, and I was thinking, I said, well, she remembered that pretty well.
Right. You remember that so well. But remember, again, this is just to test the witness who met with the government over 27, 28 times.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Yeah, memories become manufactured after that.
Hold up. So you mean to tell me how many times?
You remember that so well. But remember, again, this is just to test the witness who met with the government over 27, 28 times.
The government met with these witnesses multiple times. They were well rehearsed, well prepared for this trial. This is, at a certain point, it doesn't become your recollection or your memory. It becomes some kind of manufactured thing that you all agreed upon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, memories become manufactured after that.
Right.
I'm gonna throw that out there.
Right.
Memories become manufactured, because you got to understand that when there is a very fine line between prep and coach.
Mm-hmm.
You are allowed to prep your witness. You are not allowed to coach the witness, and they have crossed that line. In my opinion, the prosecution here has crossed that line. When you have to meet with a witness 27 times, you have crossed the line.
That's
you are
a lot
not
of times.
carrying that witness anymore.
And you can tell that on cross.
Yeah,
because
they fall apart.
Exactly. Falling apart on cross.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Because your memory has been constructed for you.
Wow.
Right. And it's the way they do it, right? Just so people know, is when you ask a person a question and they give you an answer and you ask that same question, you are signaling to the person that they gave you the wrong answer, which is why you're asking the question again. And then you are then prompting them to give you a different answer. That is the difference between prep and coach. If I'm prompting you to give me a different answer because I am rejecting the answer you gave, that's coaching.
That's coaching.
That's coaching. Okay.
That is what we've seen in this case time and time again. Interesting. This is what it's like to have a real legal mind approach this. Like, it's almost like Diddy's team should have hired these attorneys here. You know, like they are making very salient points on why they cannot convict. They've at least raised doubt here, and why this case probably should have been, you know, some kind of mistrial or something. You know, it seems like if these witnesses had been coached up that much, and then how could we let this fly? How could they have let this fly? You know, interesting questions, but I want to know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Fawcett Media.